Hello awesome people, I hope you're having an amazing day today. Today we're taking a look at the novel Midnight Sun that was published by Ramsey Campbell in 1990. I've now read it twice. I just finished it over the last 4 days. For you folks, it's about 310 pages long. Took me about, it's actually got a denser type than normal novel reading. The type is much smaller, so it took longer for me to read it than normally a 310 page book would read. I knocked out the last 60 pages last night in about 2 hours. So I was probably going through roughly 30 pages an hour rather than my normal 40 pages an hour. Roughly novel reading speed because it is a bit denser. Ramsey Campbell also has a lot of description in this novel too, so we're going to be doing my review of this novel. The second time I've read it for. We've done a deep dive into Ramsey Campbell already for you folks. I did a couple of short stories and collections that he had publications in. One in a horror collection of the 100 short stories, ghost stories, and then another one in a collection of fantasy stuff that was published in the 70s. So that's on Appendix N for Dungeons & Dragons by Gary Gygax, some of those influential stuff. So I did a deep dive into that for that reading as well. But now, and then recently for October, for my Cthulhu Mythos October, I did a deep dive and I reviewed every book, every work in a book collection that he put out called Cold Print. And I still have a few of those stories that I haven't published yet. I'm just going to wait till the next Halloween in order to finish that up. And then they'll be the first few that I kick off the next Halloween with. For my Cthulhu Mythos Halloween, for my 3 reviews that I do. So I wanted to go back and knock out this novel for him now that I've gotten into a little bit more of a deeper dive into some of the things that I did for you folks. I started, since it's 310 pages long, I figured I'd probably knock out like 100 pages a day over the course of the break. I was flying to my family's place in West Virginia from Baltimore area, so I figured I'd knock out 100 pages on the first day on my flight over and waiting in the airport, on the Uber over, and then that night after everybody goes to bed. And then the next day I figured I'd knock out another 100 pages, Christmas Day proper, after everybody finished up. And then the next day I figured I'd knock out another 100 pages on the way back, the flight back in the Uber back from Reagan International to my place in Baltimore, which is about an hour drive. So I figured I'd knock out in 3 days. So I did. I was very ambitious on the first day. I did 50 on the way over, in addition to 30 and to 50 on the way over, as well as about 30 on the Uber over for about an hour. Then I knocked out about 20 more at the restaurant that I was eating at from getting in my airport before I was picked up. So I had 100 done before I got home. Then I knocked out another 50 after everybody went to bed. So I did 150 on the first day, rather because I was just so into the novel. And then I did on the second day, because it was Christmas, I just didn't do anything. Then on the third day, flying back, I did 50 on the flight back home. And then, well, actually 30 on the flight back home, and then 20 on the Uber drive. So I knocked out 50 pages then. And then I did another 50 while waiting for Monday Night Football. And so I just did another 50 pages. And then I went to Monday Night Football a little bit late, probably about 10 or 15 minutes late, because I wanted to finish up. So I did 100 pages on that day, just like I was expecting to. And then I did 60 last night on Tuesday. So there you are. So I knocked out 4 days, but in 3 days of reading, I just took a day break on Christmas. So I still kept my calendar that I initially set, and was very ambitious on the first day. I knocked out basically half the novel at 150 pages, which is 310. So it would have been 50 pages shorter than half the novel. So I think that's considered half by most people. So there you are. So this novel is divided into 3 parts. The first part tells the story of our point of view character Ben's childhood growing up in and around this town. After some tragic events happen in his life, we're going to find out that he's living with his aunt after his parents have just recently died at the town that he grew up in, a small little rural town, which will become a key part of this storyline and will become another major character in the novel. I loved this part when I first read it. I love this part. My second time going back to it, now like a decade later, it's still my favorite part of the book, and that part has an 8 out of 10, so very strong, very strong. And then the next part, after 50 pages, we'll fast forward to middle age with him, married with a couple of kids. And this part is the first half of his middle age life. it's okay. It's fine. It's well read. It's well done. Has a lot of fun stuff happening. But I'm only giving a 7 to that part. And then the third part is about half the novel, and it's also similarly slower paced. Not a whole lot of things are happening, and it's probably more like a 7.2. So I'm giving this novel for all 7 out of 7.5, averaging the 2. My favorite part is the first part when Ben is a kid. I love the darkness in his life and how he's reacting to things. So I definitely enjoyed Ben as a kid. Anyway, so I'm giving this novel a 7 out of 5. As a reminder, I keep my reviews spoiler free, but the basic key concept that you'll find out early on in the first couple of chapters is that our point of view character, Ben, his parents have died. He was raised in an interesting way, and he has a dark past that he's trying to find about himself. His grandfather died in a mysterious way, and gave him a book that he wrote, and he's been told him to keep reading it until he understood it. So he's been going back and trying to reread that over and over and over again. That's sort of a key part of his childhood. So anyway, and then there's some strange things happen in his town. But now he's living with his aunt in a different town, and so now after his parents have died mysteriously in a car accident. So there you are. The dark past. One of the cool things that Ramsey Campbell does in this novel is this connection of cold and ice and snow and so forth with evil. It is an evil, dark thing. There's lots of dark hidden in the evil. It reminded me, since I recently reread the August Derleth 2 short stories in the Cthulhu mythos called Ithaquah and the Walker on the Wind, that both take place in forests in the rural areas of Canada and in the northern climates that also have evil aspects to their cult as well. I was reminded of that when I went back and reread this for it a second time, since I just recently reread that for my Cthulhu Mythos stuff a couple of years ago. Anyway, so I thought that was pretty cool that there was that connection. You know, Ramsey Campbell is a big name in the British horror scene. He's published tons of novels, short stories. He started getting published in the early 60s in the Cthulhu Mythos stuff, and when he was still a teenager, and he published several short stories in the early 60s that got started his career. He has developed his technique. He started out, he was fine, he was getting published, he was doing some good stuff, nice jump scares, but his horror stuff wasn't this huge, change in things where you can predict where he was going, and his writing was fine too. But his writing craft has improved incredibly. Try reading, The Church in the High Street, the first short story he read, and then read Midnight Sun. Midnight Sun is just such a much more mature, strong writing. He has somebody who has added in a sense of awesomeness and wonder to his horror scenes, and that's a key part of Midnight Sun. Now, one of the key sort of when you go and look at horror reviews by other editors and critics about Midnight Sun, their key issue that they have with this is that it's too long and it's too slow. I would agree with the second two parts, particularly part 3, which is like half the book. Probably could have been trimmed by 20 or 30 or 40 pages. This is probably about an hour shorter for me to read. So I agree with that, but 310 pages isn't that long for a horror novel. I mean, there are Stephen King novels that are like twice that size, right? And modern novels like, in other speculative fiction genres like novels in fantasy and science fiction are also just as long too, or longer, much hundreds of pages longer. So it's not like the length of it is long. So I disagree with that, but I do think that the pacing is a little slow at times, and he could have sped it up a little bit here and there. Maybe added some more action scenes and so forth. There's a lot of description. He does a great job with it. And again, I'm giving it a 7.5 overall with an 8 for the first one. It's strong. It's definitely got some great descriptions, and you can definitely see the talent level has progressed from when he started getting published when he was a teenager to now in 1990 with this novel. It's great. It's definitely worth your time. And that's Midnight Sun by Ramsey Campbell. As a reminder, this channel is named after the worst thing about new books, a famous quote by a French philosopher called Jacques Schubert, who said that the worst thing about new books was that they kept us from reading the old ones. So I like to go back and reread these novels. They're decades old, in this case 1990, a few decades ago. I've just gone back and reread. I'm currently rereading a horror collection of stuff in the 1880s that I've already done a few reviews recorded for. So I'd like to go back and reread some of those older things from the older times. And in this case, I like to do that too for Ramsey Campbell. Anyway, so there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read this novel? If so, what did you think about it? Would you like to talk about the ending? Would you like to talk about the lack of action in a few places? Did you think that there was also some pacing issues with the novel too? If so, I'd be happy to talk with you further about it in the comments below. Did you think it was better than 7.5 out of 10? Did you think it was worse? Let's talk about that too. If you enjoyed this review, why not hit that subscribe button? There's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And then finally, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it in watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.